Yeah, I remember Joe Biden getting sworn in January 21st of 2021. Seems like he got sworn in because Donald Trump had already vacated the White House and moved out. So there was no attempt to hold on to power, to call the military in, to keep him in there. That's nonsense. It's another one of the massive lies that the Democrats have told.
I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have.
Mike Huckabee is either experiencing some severe memory loss or he hopes that the Fox News audience has. Remember how Donald Trump quietly left the White House without inciting an insurrection and hasn't lied about getting his ass kicked in that election every day for nearly 4 years?
But if we're right, a lot of them will go to jail. So let's have trial by combat.
All of us here today do not want to see our election victory stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats, which is what they're doing, and stolen by the fake news media. That's what they've done and what they're doing. We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved. Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore, and that's what this is all about.
We lost the line. All MPDs get back. All MPDs get back up to the upper deck.
Yeah, me neither. And like everything else related to Trump, his servants in politics have to constantly pitch an opposite reality when describing his time in office.
Then he also said that Trump has never succeeded in creating jobs. Not only the Trump Organization, but he was also president for 4 years and created jobs.
Right. Think about it. When Trump left office, the border was secure, the economy was great, and we weren't at war. Look, just in 3 years and 5 months, what's happened?
Except that unemployment was over 6%, while tens of thousands of people were still dying of COVID after he tried to ignore it. And I remember lots of people complaining that Biden bungled the withdrawal from Afghanistan. How did Biden screw up a pulling out of a war that didn't exist under Trump? Doesn't matter to Rick Scott. His job is to ignore reality and spin it for his boss.
No.
Did it have anything to do with the gag order, you being here today?
No, I'm fed up. I watched what happened to me and my company. I've watched what's happened. I've talked to business people over the years, what's happened to them when you have political persecution. And now what I've watched what President Trump has done with all these cases. This is just simply, they don't want this guy on the ballot.
Rick Scott decided to skip a Senate vote to show up for Donald Trump's hush money case to prove that he cares more about Trump than his job. He even thought that he could relate to Trump by whining about how he got busted for leading the largest hospital chain into rampant Medicare fraud, resulting in the company having to pay $1.7 billion in fines. The whistleblower detailed some of Scott's crimes.
I discovered the company led by Rick Scott was preparing 2 Medicare cost reports. One that they would file with the Medicare program that was an aggressive report that that claimed expenses and costs that the company knew were non-reimbursable. And then they would prepare a second one that they call a reserve report. And it was the more true and accurate cost report that they used for internal booking purposes. That second cost report that they kept for internal purposes was also stamped confidential, or sometimes even stamped do not show to Medicare auditors. This practice, I found, was widespread throughout the company, and it resulted in hundreds of millions of dollars in ill-gotten gains for Columbia HCA. When I questioned the practice, management told me to remain quiet.
It makes sense that Scott came to provide moral support for his criminally minded buddy Donald, but I wouldn't be surprised if Trump was turned off by Scott trying to steal the spotlight. He probably wants to be the only guy that's courageously fighting for his right to break the law.
Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to get on a plane right now and go into a criminal trial with a has not been indicted like Trump. Scarface. Have you ever seen Al Capone? He was a lovely character. If he had dinner with you and didn't like you, you were dead by the morning. You were dead. They would never find your body. You'd be in the Meadowlands someplace. Now, Al Capone was indicted less than me. I mean, think of it. The great Al Capone.
The great Al Capone would have you killed by the morning if he didn't like you, he says. Sounds like a seriously maladjusted person to look up to and call great, which might be why MAGA supports Trump even more based off of these disgusting things that they find out about him every day of this trial.
Stormy claims that she blacked out in this tryst with Trump, but she wasn't on any drugs or alcohol. You blacked out without drugs or alcohol. Some of us call that sleeping. Now, it could be that you really blacked out after having sex with Trump, which is a compliment. Truly, he screwed the brains out of her.
Oh, God.
That makes him a sex god. Stormy called it an imbalance of power. Well, duh. That's why you met him. If he were a mechanic, if he was a high school teacher, you wouldn't have run up and slept with him. It was all about the power. It was all about the imbalance. That's how this transaction works when you're a porn star. Sex god. Sex god.